Hi guys, I'm going to show you how to make a wire wrapped ring today. To do this, you're going to need, you might need a pair of pliers. You will need some wire clippers, a variety of beads with somewhat large holes. You can experiment with the size of the holes. And then you're going to need about a foot of wire. I'll cut this in a minute. You might also need a round object. Now normally in jewelry making we'd use what's called a ring mandrel, but since we don't have those with us at home, you're just going to need to find anything that's round. So I have some chapstick that would work, a marker, even like a wooden spoon, the handle of it, a paintbrush, anything around your house that is like a cylinder and it's similar to the size of any of your fingers, that would be perfect. Now keep in mind, a pinky ring is going to require like a smaller dowel. If you're trying to make it for your thumb, you're going to need something that is a little bit larger. So we can experiment with a variety of materials. Now the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cut about a foot of wire. And I believe I gave you guys, I think 40 inches, so you should have quite a lot to work with. We're using this really thin brass wire. It's 26 gauge, so it's very thin. Now this is going to be a beaded wire wrapped ring, and it's going to have 3 beads on the example that I'm showing you. So what I'm going to do is I like to pick out beads that complement each other. So I'm going to have 2 matching clear beads and then a blue bead in the center. And it's super easy. All you're going to do is thread your beads onto your wire, and we're going to let them fall down to the middle. So you can kind of match your tails up. Be careful not to actually like fold the wire, like create a kink in it. We don't want that. But let it rest so that it's in the center. Then what we'll do, I think I want to use this chapstick maybe. This can be a little bit tricky, is making sure your beads don't move, but we're gonna take our wire and wrap it around whatever cylinder you're using. Can you see how it's wrapping around like this? What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna bring the wire up to where the beads are. See if I can kind of zoom you in a little bit. Okay, so I wrapped my wire, went all the way around, and now I have a loose tail. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make this wire go through the beads. So it's going to go through all 3 of these beads. Here's the tail. So sometimes it's a little hard to get it through all of them at once, so be patient with yourself. Doing my best here. Let's see. If you find it challenging to pull the wire with your hands, that's where the pliers can be useful. So I'm just going to use my pliers to kind of tug on it. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to take this loose tail and I'm going to go through all the beads. And what this is doing is it's making a ring that is, it's like triple thickness. So instead of just being 1 wire thick, sometimes it honestly helps a little bit to take it off. So this is going to be way too big for me. You can see that's too big of a ring. So I'll put it back onto this chopstick and I'm going to pull on the tails. See how that tightened it up really nice? If I pull it off, I can show you what it looks like. So that's what I mean, is it has actually 2 thicknesses to it. And then if you look at the wires going through, you can see that there's 3 wires going through the beads. That's why the holes need to be a little bit large. All right, now comes the fun part. Now that you have your wires sticking out, you could make this really simple and you could do some wire wrapping here and that could just end it off. But I like to do kind of a little like infinity loop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my wire, I'm gonna wrap it around the top of my clear bead and then around the bottom of my blue bead. Okay, so kind of created this little half of like a figure 8 or half of an infinity symbol. Let me kind of squeeze it so it looks nice. And then I'll show you. All right, so I just went above the clear bead, below the blue bead, and then above the clear bead. That's with one side. Now I'm going to take this other side, this tail that's right here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go underneath the clear bead, above the blue bead. This is creating the reverse. And then below the clear bead again. This just makes all the beads look like they've been encased in wire, like they've been wrapped around. It can look really cool, but you don't have to do it. It takes a little bit of fiddling to get it to really sit tightly on the beads, especially if your beads are kind of a funky shape. Let's see if I can give you a close-up of what this looks like. Can you see how now it looks like the beads themselves have been wrapped in wire? It doesn't go onto the back or anything. It's just a little detail on the front. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a small wire wrapped coil using this tail on either side. And that's going to hold these beads in place so they don't jiggle around. Sometimes you can do this on top of whatever your circle form is, but I don't know. I find it a little bit challenging. That's how I was taught to do it when I was in high school jewelry, but I sort of like to just do it off of the mold. The key to this is getting it as tight as you can. So I'm going to make sure that the tension's really good around that last bead, and then I'm just going to take my tail, a little hard to see, but I'm going to wrap my tail around these two wires to make a little coil, or you might want to call it like a spring, but you want each wrap to sit right next to the other. They shouldn't be spaced out. Do you see how these are all sitting super tightly together? This takes a little bit of practice to get good at this. So don't feel frustrated, you know, if it doesn't work out for you on your first ring. That's why I gave you lots of wire. So you can cut apart the old ring and get the beads off of it and just try again. Don't sweat it if you don't get it to look nice. I don't want to wrap it the whole way because sometimes they can feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that looks good to me on that side. Now I'm going to flip it over and we'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to make sure that the bead wire wrap looks nice before I do it, because once you finish off those ends, you can't go back and change it too much. So I'm making sure that my wire, they kind of are perpendicular, which means they're meeting like this, like at a right angle. And then I'm just going to wrap. What if I started wrapping like R-A-P? You wouldn't have expected that. Missed opportunity. Someday I'll prepare a jewelry wrap for you. Now, I'm kind of picky when it comes to the details, so if you have like 7 coils on one side, you should have 7 coils on the other. It looks like, let's see here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How did I know? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just need to do one more little wire wrap around. And then what we can do, this is going to be kind of important because you don't want to get poked when you wear the ring. So I kind of like my last coil to end like more in the front. Oh, let's see if I can get that to focus a little bit. There we go. I like this tail to end up in the front of the ring, so that way it's not going to be like stabbing my finger when I wear it. You're just going to take your clippers, clip off the excess as close as you can. Do the same thing on this side. And then this is what a finished ring looks like. It looks a little bit wonky right here. I have a little bit of a bump. Do you see this little bump? So what I might do is take my pliers and try to flatten that out, smooth it out a bit. You might put it back onto your round surface and kind of adjust it a little bit. I feel like that kind of helps. If you have a nail file available, or you know, a jewelry file, you could file that sharp end. But let's see if I can show you what it looks like on. this is what your ring's gonna look like on. You can kind of scooch around that wire wrap a little bit. Ooh, it's big. I don't typically wear rings on this finger. Let's see. I like them on my ring finger instead. So these were kind of big beads. You can use as small of beads as you want. The only tricky part is finding beads that have a large enough hole. So I tried to include a small bag of beads that had large holes. I tested all of them. If you can imagine that, I put 3 thicknesses of wire through all the beads. So you should be able to make, you know, a ring, but you're welcome to include your own beads as well if that's something that you would like to choose. So that's how you make a wire wrap ring. Have fun with that.